So there was a little boy who was given the chance to have 3 wishes, and they asked him, well, what would you want if you could have 3 wishes? And he said, well, first I want a new bike, then I would like to always be with my family, and third, I would like to be invisible. And his family thought, well, why would you want to be invisible? And he said, so I can go up to people and whisper in their ear, you're not alone. Isn't that sweet? You're not alone. Yesterday, I officiated a memorial service at Anthem Ranch Lodge, which it was in their ballroom, and it had the whole ballroom, and it was filled, and it was packed. And this guy that passed away was the band director at Fairview High School for like 25 years. And a lot of his students came, and it was just incredible. The family was not alone. There were so many people there, and everybody got up. There was a lot of people wanted to speak about him and share stories and memories of him. And just, there was so much love in that room. You could just feel it. And everyone that got up said, Bob would have loved this. He would have loved this room filled with these people who all were connecting and loving each other up. And it was just incredible. What an honor that I got to be there. And I didn't know him, but I wish I would have. But love, we're talking about love today because Valentine's Day on Friday. And sometimes I go, why do I talk about love again? I don't know what to say about love. But love. I mean, if we look at the Christian scriptures and the 1 Corinthians chapter 13, and it says what love is, and you've all heard this, love is patient, love is kind, and it's spoken at a lot of wedding ceremonies. But before that part where it describes what love is, it says, without love, I am nothing. Not I'm less than, or not that I'm a little deficient. I am nothing without love. That we are love itself. We are that. That's our nature. Our nature is love. And so often we forget that. And when we forget it, we get out of the flow. Eric Butterworth likes to talk about the cosmic flow, that we have to keep it flowing. And when we stop the flow, we don't want to stop the flow. Things happen when we stop the flow. And he says this, when we stop the flow, you're not in tune with the very specific power that enables you to live vitally and abundantly. Don't we all want to live vitally and abundantly? We have to keep the love flowing. And it starts within us. It starts in us. If we don't have it in us, if we don't feel it in us, if we don't recognize the love that we are, then we can't possibly spread it out. We can't possibly share it with other people because it starts here and it has to flow out. There's a story that Jesus shared in the Christian scriptures called the prodigal son. And a lot of you have heard this story, probably most of you have heard the story of the prodigal son. And the story that Jesus tells, a man has 2 sons. He's a wealthy man. And the younger son says to his dad, I would like to have my inheritance. And so his dad gives him his inheritance, his share, and he moves off and he goes out to a different part of the country and he starts spending the money, and he spends it, and he doesn't spend it very wisely, and he spends it all, and he goes broke, and he has to get a job feeding pigs, they said, and he realizes there's a famine in the city, and he's hungry, so he thinks, I should go back to my father's house. At least the servants there are fed better than I'm being fed now. So I'll go back and I'll apologize and I'll say, just make me a servant. I know I'm no longer his son because I've taken half his money, all my inheritance. So he goes back to his father's house, and before he even gets there, his father sees him from far away and just welcomes him. puts a ring on his finger and a robe over his shoulders and sandals on his feet and says, kill the fatted calf. We're going to have a feast. My son is returned. And the older son, who was there all the time, finds out that there's going to be a party for the younger son that took the money and, was prodigal, wasteful, prodigal, that word. We don't use that word much except for right here. Why should he get a party? Why should he get a party? And the father, again, recognizes, just says to him, son, all I have is yours. Everything I have is yours. But the son that had died is alive again and has come back. So we're going to celebrate. So I love this story, and it can be interpreted a lot of different ways. And in Unity, we say that every character in the Bible is part of us, is an aspect of us. So in us, we have the younger son, we have the father, and we have the older son. The younger son is that part of us that's not fully developed. And we all have parts of our own personalities, parts of ourselves that's not fully developed, not fully mature, and wants to experiment, and wants to try things, and wants to experience new things. Think of a teenager. They want to just try things. They're curious, right? It's part of our human nature to be curious. And so we want to leave the Father's house, and we want to try stuff. And then sometimes we get into trouble when we do that because we've left the Father's house. Now, the Father's house represents that part of us that knows what it knows. It knows who we are. It knows that we are spirit, and our essence is of spirit. And when we leave the Father's house, what happens? We get hungry. There's a famine. Things don't last. And so we decide we want to return to the Father's house. At least there we'll have some sustenance. And what does the Father do when the Son comes back? When he left, there was no judgment. There was no, better be careful of this. There was no warning. There was no advice. It was just, we have free will. The Father, the Spirit in us, just says, go do, go be. Go be curious. Go try things. But when we come back, there's no, you better do some penance, you better do some chores to make up for this. None of that. It's celebration time. Just like Spirit in us, just like when we come back, it's a celebration. We're just immediately embraced. And then there's the older son. There's that part of us that always thinks we're doing things right. We're doing things the right way. We're living a good life, and we should be rewarded. And that younger brother of mine that got the party and he went off and spent all the money, he doesn't deserve that. We have that part in us too. And it comes out as self-righteousness. We know better. But again, the Spirit in us, the Father in us just says, everything I have is yours. There's no, stop looking at it that way. Oh, you've got so much. None of that. So when we can do this for ourselves, and we can because it's all in us, all these parts are in us, we can love ourselves. We can love who we are. And we have to love who we are to love other people and to spread it out. So often we look at our flaws and we think, look at that. Everybody's going to see that part of me. They're not going to like me. I better work on that before I can help someone else, before I can love someone else, before I can give to someone else, because I'm not perfect. Who is? None of us. Even masterpieces have flaws. Even great works of art have flaws. That's what makes them unique. There's a quote by Winifred Hausman, who was a Unity minister in Cleveland. That's the one. When you begin to look for and recognize the good in others, you will find that flaws are small when compared with the masterpiece that is the real person. You will find it easier to love than to criticize. And when you do, you will be on your way to becoming divinely irresistible. Divinely irresistible. Wouldn't you love to be divinely irresistible? Like, you're just so amazing and so attractive and so, loving and love that people just are drawn to you. And Winifred Hausman got this from May Rowland, who was the director of Silent Unity for years and years and years. And May Rowland said this: when your heart is filled with love, you will not be critical or irritable, but you will be divinely irresistible. Be divinely irresistible. Like, ooh, doesn't that just feel good? The thought of it? Like, how could we be divinely irresistible? Well, stop being critical. Stop being irritable. Start loving, because if we want to experience more love in our life, we have to be more loving. It's that flow that's always going. We can be in the flow, or we can so easily cut off the flow. The Gospel of Thomas, it says that if you bring forth what is within you will save you. Bring forth what is in you. What is in you is love itself. What is in you is kindness itself. What is in you is wisdom and life and zeal and all these spiritual powers that we have, all these spiritual abilities. If we bring it forth, it will save us. It'll save us from a life that is meaningless. It'll save us from despair. It'll save us from judgment and all those things that we don't want. If we bring forth that which is within us, which is real within us, the love is real, and bring it forth. We do that by being kind, by being loving. This week is the Random Acts of Kindness week, and tomorrow is actually Random Acts of Kindness Day. It was started in 1995 in Denver, and it's nationwide now. And, it's an opportunity just to have awareness that we can do random acts of kindness for people, and it can change their life. We have no idea how much it can change their life. We have no idea what's going on in anybody's mind ever. We're not mind readers. And we don't know if just saying hello or smiling at somebody, paying it forward, buying somebody's coffee in front of you. There's so much we can do. And there's a site called randomactsofkindness.org. There's so much information. There's so much videos and articles and ideas on how to be kind and how to share kindness and there's calendars for kids. They take it to schools. It's incredible. There was one little video I watched this morning. It was animated, and it was this guy, Norm, and Norm was gray. And Norm woke up gray every day. But somebody opened a door for him and handed him a flower, and his whole world turned colorful. So we don't know what one little thing will do for somebody's life. Why wouldn't we do that? And the more we do that, the more we feel it. It's amazing how that works. We don't get depleted by doing that. We get filled up. We get uplifted. There was another little video this morning that I watched of a little 7-year-old, Abby, who got $25 from her grandma every year on her birthday. And she used this money to buy Pillsbury cinnamon rolls, in the stick that you bang and then you take them apart and bake them. And bacon and sausage and fruit. And she brought breakfast to the Lakewood police. And she's 7. And she says, she wants to pay it forward on her birthday. Pay it forward. She goes, the policemen are always looking out for us and protecting us, and I want to help them. I want to provide breakfast for them. It's incredible. The site says we can be ractivists. R-A-K, random acts of kindness, ractivist. So be a ractivist and do something randomly that is kind. Do something. We can all do that. In today, Season for Nonviolence, the word is friendliness. Like, I love how this synchronistically works out every Sunday. Friendliness. And it says, make a new acquaintance. Befriend a stranger. Go up to someone you haven't met yet, and say, hi, friend. You could do this in Foss Hall. You could be done. Check it off your list. You got it done for the day. Maybe you want to do more than that. Love in action. It's all love in action. I subscribe to this streaming service called Uplift TV. And Uplift TV has all these short little articles and videos and lots of different things. And I watched one about a guy who is doing love in action. And his name is John Linton. And he lives in Phoenix, Arizona. And he had a friend who died of drug overdose and was also homeless, living on the streets. And so he decided he wanted to help people he didn't like to use the word homeless, that were unfortunate, that were in need of some help. And so he went up to this one guy that had a sign that said he was a Vietnam vet and he was hungry, and he brought him breakfast, and he started talking with him. And after a while, he said, I didn't even introduce myself. My name is John. What is your name? And the guy started weeping. He said, you don't know how long it's been since someone has asked who I am. And so John started taking pictures of people, not to exploit them, but to give them dignity. And he had a whole series of black and white photos of people who were living on the streets with their name. And somebody donated their gallery space so that he could have an art show, and it just incredible. And then somebody donated him a bus, and he started another movement called Be Better Humans. And he started bringing food and getting donations and bringing things to people that were in need. Love in action. Love in action. Act of kindness. There's another story of 3 young men who 20 years ago, they lived in West Baltimore in a rough neighborhood, and they went to college, and 2 of them are brothers, Ollie and Ottman Smith, and then the other one is Andres Gonzalez, and Andres was a friend of theirs from college, and they came back after college to West Baltimore, where a lot of the houses were boarded up. It wasn't a safe neighborhood. But they gathered as many youth as they could to their family home and would have meetings, like 20 kids, 20 young guys, like teenagers. And they taught them mindfulness and yoga and breathing, and taught them how to calm themselves, taught them how to take control of their own minds, so that when they were faced with a choice, they could make a better choice. They said, people ask why the inner city is called the hood instead of the neighborhood. He said it's because all the neighbors have left. And they saw that in their neighborhood. And the interviewer asked them, well, why do you think all the neighbors left? And they said, crack. It's a real problem here. And so they wanted to make a difference. These 3 young men were incredible. They wanted to make a big difference. And so there was an elementary school just a couple blocks away. And they went to the principal and they said to her, bring us your most at-risk kids. Bring us the ones that cause the most trouble. And they started having a program for these kids where the kids would learn yoga and learn mindfulness and learn deep breathing techniques. And the principal said, she was kind of iffy about it at first, but after 3 years, what a huge difference it had made. Huge difference. And these 3 young men didn't stop by just being always the trainers. They trained the kids to do it for themselves. They trained the kids to lead the classes. And they went to a high school in the area, same thing. It's now 20-some years later, and they're still going strong. They're in many cities across the country. It's called Holistic Life Foundation. And they're making a difference. They're making a big difference in the lives of a lot of people. They have touched over 200,000 kids and adults. They ended up going into rehab centers, shelters, places where people really need some help in getting calm, in remembering who they are, in regaining their dignity. Incredible work. There's so many things, and we don't have to do anything that big. We just have to do something. Do something to make a difference. To be kindness, to be that love in action. Winifred Hausman also said this: kindness has been described as love active. Perhaps there is a way in which you can be kinder, not just to those who love you, but to others who may need your kindness, especially at this time. Especially at this time. Laura sang a song at first service about this. In this time, in this moment, we need this. We need the love that we are to come forth, to come out, to bring it out, to make a difference, to be divinely irresistible as we do. Is such a gift. These young men from the Holistic Life Foundation said the biggest gift they thought they brought to these kids was presence. They didn't have their phone on. Nothing. They would just be present for these kids who didn't have that at home, these kids who didn't have clean clothes or often breakfast to eat in the morning. Just be present. And tell each other that they love them. She said, we told the kids all the time, I love you. And they'd say, I love you too. They started saying it back. We can make a big difference. We can be divinely irresistible. So what are you going to do? What could you do that can make a difference to someone's life today or tomorrow or this week? The more you do it, the more it comes back to you. And you feel that love, feel that how irresistible you are. Because you are, each of you are irresistible and a masterpiece. We're all masterpieces with all our flaws. So I invite you this week to try it. Whatever it is for you, be a friend, introduce yourself. Be irresistible, like I know you can be. So, namaste. Peace be with you.